We are today reviewing Slipknot's debut album, which is also called Slipknot. I guess it's technically their second album. They released an album of demos called Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. Very normal.
I had that.
Very normal thing to call an album. But this was their debut, their major label debut, if you could call Roadrunner a major label. It came out on June 29th, 1999, and then they were sued for two of the tracks that were released on the album. So it was reissued in December 1999 with a slightly altered track listing and mastering as a result of the lawsuit. It was produced by Ross Robinson. It was released on Roadrunner Records, and it went double platinum, Brian. It went single platinum in 2000 and double platinum in 2005. It has also gone platinum in Canada and the UK, and Wait and Bleed was nominated for a Best Metal Performance Grammy, losing to the Deftones' possible worst song, Elite.
Yeah, that song sucks shit.
It does. It's
Sorry,
crazy.
I apologize.
No, don't. That's crazy that's like, I feel like that's the only song Deftones have ever won a Grammy for, and it's like possibly their worst song.
No, I think they've won a couple of them.
They have not.
That's it?
That's even
Elite?
the only time they were nominated.
Honestly, their worst song. That is one of their worst songs, maybe. I'm trying to think of a Back to School, maybe, Mini Maggot.
Yeah,
not great song.
I mean, but
that's
it's still
about it.
pretty good, though. Like, it just is so strange.
You just like the rap. You're just a hip-hop guy, man.
I'm a hip-hop guy. What can I say? And I'm a teacher, so it's like the Back to School were, like, pretty cool, you know? Like,
You're like, I'm going to get paid soon. Yeah. I'm back to school, man.
Yeah, you're back to school, baby. So we've listened to this Slipknot album. We're gonna talk a lot about it, and it is it never charted. So normally we do talk about the chart history of the albums. It never charted, but it did sell obviously a ton of copies, went double platinum, and other awards it received. VH1 did a list of the greatest metal songs of all time, and Wait and Bleed was named the 36th greatest metal song of all time.
It's a good one.
It is a great one. It's really the only. Well, it's not the only one, but anyway, we'll get into it. Brian, what are your initial thoughts, on this album before we start to get into the tracks? How do you feel about Slipknot? Let's actually tell me about your history with Slipknot first.
I remember I was reading Alternative Press, because that was like the magazine that would talk about all the new metal guys,
right?
You know?
Yep.
It was like the best one that would talk about
because there was like Revolver, but that kind of felt almost like a tabloid, like it wasn't great, you know.
Also, Buck Cherry. They would do like Buck Cherry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It wasn't all new metal. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like Alternative Press was like
yeah, that was the real deal.
Yeah, they did ICP and like new metal was all they ever talked about in there. So I remember reading it and they saying, there's going to be this band coming out with 9 dudes in it and they wear masks. And I was like, I definitely have to hear this because it just sounded like, I don't know. I mean, you hear there's 9 people in a band. You at least want to hear what it is, and you don't know what the fuck they're all doing,
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Like, what are these fucking guys even doing with 9 people? What is it, an orchestra?
Yeah, the Slipknot Orchestra. That was their original name, but the Roadrunner made them cut orchestra out of their name.
Yeah, and Roadrunner, by the way, good label.
Core
was on Roadrunner for a period of time.
Oh yeah, Roadrunner's had some huge acts, especially in the new metal realm of things.
Well, and Roadrunner was like a name you could trust back then,
Right, sure.
Like if it wasn't like Roadrunner, there are only a few labels that people really know. And if you listen to metal, Roadrunner's one of them. And it was like, if Roadrunner's coming out with an album, that is a plus.
Yeah, no,
before you buy it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. And I think that there's, that was back in the days before the internet, like, I mean, obviously the internet was around, but like before you really used the internet, I think people don't realize that was one of the factors in buying an album. I can remember like Equal Vision was a record label that it came a little after Roadrunner, but that was kind of my like equivalent for like Screamo. and stuff like that. Like it was like, oh, if Equal Vision puts out a record, like I'm probably gonna like it. I didn't like everything they put out, obviously, which would have been the same with Roadrunner, but like, you know, you definitely you could latch on to a label, obviously not like a major label. No one was like, oh boy, like when Epic puts out a record, I definitely love it, because they're like releasing like 10 albums every week.
Yeah.
But like these kind of boutique labels, you definitely could feel like, okay, this is gonna be dope.
I mean, their roster now is like some heavy hitters. You know, they got Code Orange, Coheed and Cambria, Gojira, Korn, and they got Slash's like side project, and they still have Slipknot and Stone Sour, Theory of a Dead Man, and Trivium too. So it's like,
yeah,
they have like a lot of big artists now. They gotta be like they're the Electra Music Group. They're tied with them. Parent company is Warner Music Group, so that's how. But anyway, like I heard about them coming out, and like I was still like way into metal. This is like 1999 when this is coming out, and I checked at the store over and over again until they had a demo. I was handed a demo, I think, on the way out of a concert, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, that's the other weird thing that would happen when you would go to concerts back then, is like they would hand you a cassette tape as you walked out of like another band that's on the label. Like the street team would come to the show and hand them out, and they handed me the Slipknot thing, and I had been waiting to hear them. We put it in, and it was 3 songs. I think it was Sick, Spit It Out, and I don't know what the third song was. I fucking can't remember.
Wait and
but
Bleed,
I really
probably?
loved. No, it was not Wait and Bleed.
Okay.
Wait and Bleed I didn't hear until the album came out.
Gotcha.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
And you know, they hadn't come to Ohio yet either. So like I hadn't seen them in concert. I liked the demo, but then when the album came out, I don't really know what happened, but I got to say I was never like a big Slipknot guy, you know. I saw them open. I only saw them open for Coal Chamber, who I was a big Coal Chamber guy. So don't take my taste like as an offense. You know, I just liked Coal Chamber more. So I saw them once open for Coal Chamber, and I saw them once at Ozfest. Okay, and those were the 2 times I saw them. And I thought their stage show was really fucking cool. But like, I sort of like. I don't know. I was never a big fan of Slipknot. I would say I'm more of a fan now than I was back then.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, I wish I could even remember. I know I heard Wait and Bleed first, and I don't even know how. Like, I wonder if it was because at this time when this came out in '99, I would have been into like Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff like that, but I don't know like how I would have even heard Wait and Bleed. Like, I wonder if maybe I saw it on Much Music, even possibly.
It got radio play.
Yeah, like it could have been something like that. I just remember hearing that song and I thought, okay, this is really cool. Like, I really liked the kind of interplay of the screaming and the singing, and I just thought that it was like something different and like a little heavier than what I was listening to, and I liked it a lot. And then I remember getting the album. I'm pretty sure I downloaded it, and then I remember being like really scared. Like this was like a band that like I think I've talked about it on the show before, that like, you know, I was a pretty like weak kid. Like I was a pretty, you know, I was very skinny and small and pale and scared easily. And I'm still to this day, I'm like quite squeamish. Like I don't like any like gory movies. I don't watch horror movies, whatever.
You
so
don't
I
even
think,
like food. You know what I mean?
You're right. There's a lot of food I don't like. And so, yeah, it was like, I remember listening to the album and being like, oh my God, you know, because Wait and Bleed, like, yes, it's heavy, but there is kind of like the singing. There's sort of a melodic part to it. It doesn't quite feel like the rest of the record does. Even the other single, Spit It Out, is much heavier than Wait and Bleed, I feel. So like listening back to this record, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see how I was like really scared of this, because and obviously like I knew about the fact, oh, there's 9 guys, they've got masks, like holy fuck, this is crazy. That didn't help me not be scared either. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's got fucking nails coming out of his head, and this other guy's hitting himself in the face with a baseball bat. And then, you know, they do all these interviews, and at the time they'd be like, oh yeah, at our shows we're always puking and like hitting each other, and like 2 of the percussionists like fight every show and all this stuff. And I was like, what is this? Like, I can't listen to this, you know. Like, I feel like Korn and Limp Bizkit were on that line of like they felt like dangerous but like safe dangerous. It wasn't like, you know, like it was like they were like paintball. They were like, oh, like, okay, I've got a gun, but like I'm just hitting the other guy with paint. Slipknot felt like it was a real gun, or maybe like not a real gun, but like a stun gun or something. It was like, oh, I don't know if I should be playing with this, you know. Like, it'd almost be like I'd be listening to the album in my room and I would never want my parents to hear it. And I was just so afraid of them, but like I liked it. But I was also like, oh, this is like a lot for me, you know? So I think that was my first kind of like inclination about them.
It kind of tracks with you too. I was kind of wondering when we were starting to do this, like how you reacted to Slipknot, because it doesn't seem, I don't know. I think there is a certain side of like there's kind of 2 different types of this kind of music, and there's the ultra heavy, more metal type, and then there is the more like I hate to say this word, but the more like funky or hip hop influenced side of this stuff. And like, I mean, I was probably more into the like hip hop influenced stuff, you know, the Limp Bizkit, the Korn, but I also liked the heavy shit. Like I liked Fear Factory. I liked fucking Deftones, I think, is kind of heavy compared to those other guys sometimes. And like this band, to me, when I first heard them, was like, this is the fucking heaviest band I've ever heard. And I think it was like what my brother liked about them too. It was just like, it's the loudest of all of the bands. This is loud. But I didn't like the masks. And it's really weird because I was really into ICP at that time too. Like I was listening to so much ICP at that time, but for some reason the masks on Slipknot irritated me.
Like you thought they were too gimmicky or something?
It's weird because it's something about like I had this really fucking odd way of looking at music that I think about now, where it was like, I think I cared if they knew how to play the instruments. Now, I didn't know how to play an instrument at all, and I didn't know how to tell if somebody was talented at playing an instrument, but I wanted to think that it took talent for them to make those songs, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think especially like, again, we talked about Ross Robinson when we talked about the first Korn record, but like, I mean, this album sounds like it was recorded in a trash can. So
this one really, I think this one sounds good.
Oh, I hate the way this record sounds. It sounds awful to me.
This one sounds so much cleaner than that first Korn album.
Oh, for sure. It's 4 years later. Ross Robinson's probably, you know, because we read all those articles from around that time where Ross Robinson was saying like, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. You know, presumably 4 years down the road, he knew what he was doing at that point. But I still think like, all I'm saying is like, I think if you were a guy who was looking for musicianship, the only thing that stands out on this record is the drumming. You know, obviously like Joey Jordison is a fucking freak and is just like one of the best drummers ever. And so I think that, that stands out, but to me the guitar work is so muddled on the record. Like I feel like you couldn't tell. I feel like if you were a guy who was searching for musicianship, you'd be like, well, I can't really tell if the guitars are even good or not, you know.
See, I think like for some reason maybe it was just, I don't know, it's this one sounds clean for a Ross Robinson album to me. Okay. And as I was listening to it, I was like, okay, like, but you do have a really good point about the shit that he did, you know, like even when it comes to like $3 Bill Y'all, that album sounds like shit too. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just, I think it's the style that they play in
Yeah.
is what makes it seem cleaner to me. It seems like the riffs are like tighter in a way on this album than in a lot of other things.
That could also be the drums, though, because the drums are so busy that it's almost like forcing you to like follow along, kind of. Because like the drumming kind of mimics like how hard the guitars are being played. But yeah, I mean, I do think the one thing I think that stood out to me with this album is that pardon me, they do some cool tricks on this album that I like a lot. Like there's some like really cool production things. Like I really like the kind of like breakbeat sequence that's at the start of Surfacing. Like I think that part's like really cool. Like after the breakbeat part or a breakdown part is in Eyeless at the beginning, and then Surfacing has that cool like that kind of like guitar riff at the beginning. I like that a lot. And like there's some really cool actually like DJ scratches on the record. Like I feel like it sounds really clear and like it sounds in a good, like it adds to the music to me. Like
I've said this. I've said this on this show multiple times. Probably could have got like a little bigger paycheck without the DJ. You know, get out of here, DJ. You know what I mean?
Well, Slipknot is the definition of a band that could have got a bigger paycheck because there's fucking 9 of them.
I know, but I would be sitting there if I was playing like guitar or like one of the main, or if I'm like Corey Taylor, I'm like, well, maybe we don't need the DJ anymore, you know?
Well,
like,
if I'm Slipknot,
trying to get some furniture.
If I'm Slipknot, I'm the first guy I cut is the guy who just hits kegs with a baseball bat. That's probably the first guy I get rid of.
That's an aesthetic thing, though, for me.
Yeah,
like the turntable
sure.
guy offers nothing. Listen, the turntable guy was a mistake in all the bands in that era. Like I always felt like, I'll bet you now, this is just a guess. If you took this album, $3 Bill, y'all, maybe even what's it called, Significant Other, and you somehow were able to remove the DJ stuff, you wouldn't even care. You know what I mean? Like it would sound better. I'm willing to bet that.
It's possible. I think that this record though kind of has some like cool sampling and like DJ stuff as compared to other records that maybe don't have that.
They do it differently on here. They use more like, they make it more like a techno thing.
Yeah, it's more in like industrial kind of.
Yes.
It's almost like they're using the DJ as like an industrial guitar kind of like addition to the sound, which I think is cool. But yeah, definitely the fact that there was 9 of them too really scared me, and the masks definitely scared me. I think though, like what I want to say though is like, so I remember like I got into this record even though I was kind of scared of it, and then when Iowa came out, where they kind of like leaned into the sort of like poppiness a little bit, not poppiness, but like, you know, they went, okay, we made a pretty good record, sort of. We'll get into that, but
yeah, I can't wait to argue that one.
Yeah, no, it's not okay. It's not a great record, but "Wait and Bleed" is a great song. So they're probably like, okay, we made this like okay record. A lot of people liked it. It went double platinum, but what if we just did "Wait and Bleed" like 12 times? And then that was when I was like, you know what? I need to buy a boiler suit. That was like, that's when I went over the edge for me. Like this album was like, okay, I like it, but it's like kind of scary. Should I even be listening to it? Then Iowa came out and I was like, nope, I love this. And they're selling boiler suits and they're only $120, which seems pretty reasonable considering it's a shirt and pants.
Yeah, where would you wear it? You know?
No, okay, this is how pathetic I would have wore it to school.
You wouldn't have.
I would have.
You would have got, because I know how teenage brain works now.
Oh, I would have got made so much fun of, but I would have worn it to school. Because the other thing too is like I grew up. I've said this before. I grew up in a town called White Rock, British Columbia, which white is right in the name. Is like you know, a very like suburban kind of a not. There's like richer areas of White Rock. It's right by the ocean. Like I was probably the only person in my grade that listened to Slipknot. Maybe there, like, and I had a pretty big, like, I think my grad class was like almost 400 kids, you know, which for Canada is pretty big. I know the States, the grad classes get way bigger than that, but for Canada, that's pretty big. So I remember like thinking, oh, I totally thought like, oh, I'll just wear this to school. Like, that'd be fucking cool. Because that was the album where they did the white jumpsuits. Like, because Slipknot was red jumpsuits, and then they did white jumpsuits, and they all had the numbers on them. So, like, whichever Slipknot guy you liked the best, you could actually get their number, like, on this, on the sleeve of the jumpsuit. And so, like, I was a drummer. I thought Joey Jordison was just, like, a fucking legend. So I would have got, he was number 1. So I would have got the jumpsuit with the, like, little number 1. And I wanted it. Like I just, you know, I was 14 or, well, no, I was probably like 15 at that point. And I wasn't about to be able to afford $120 to buy a jumpsuit or a boiler suit, but I definitely considered it. 100%.
You wanted to go to school and be like, I'm the fucking freak here. Okay.
Like,
don't look at me. I'm a fucking freak. I don't fit in your society, guys. Okay.
Yeah, like not even. Like that's the weird part is like I did want to fit in. Like I just think I probably thought like I just never really cared what people thought. So I think I just was probably like it was cool to me. So I just sort of thought like, well, other people will probably think this is cool too because like it's cool to me. There was one.
Let's go 50-50. You did have a 50-50 chance of people really being like, that's cool what you're doing. I think
it was nowhere near 50-50. It was like 10-90.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
I think it was 50-50. I feel like sometimes, see, teenagers don't understand this. At this point, I can't get my daughter to understand this. People are impressed when you do when you like go out on a limb. Now, sometimes going at like if you were in I don't know, if you went to high school in the 90s and you wore bell bottoms to school, people would have fucking made fun of you, of course. But I think if you showed up in a fucking jumpsuit, people would be like, well, okay, that's interesting, you know?
Yeah, they might have been. It's like, it's almost though like you'd have to have a certain amount of clout. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you wouldn't necessarily have to be the most popular kid in school, but I think like as long as you're kind of like really respected by kids and kids like you, then I think they would go like, whoa, okay, John's doing something different. I want to understand what he's doing. Whereas I did not have that. Like it would have just been like, oh, John, what a fucking nerd. And have you seen he's wearing a white boiler suit to school. Like what is happening?
See, if I had done that, people would be like, Bryan, you're fucking wild, dude.
Yeah, but you were cool though. You were cool and people liked you. And you also like you had the cred to back it up, right? Like you did drugs and you smoked cigarettes and you got
That's
like
true.
I didn't do any of that stuff. I actively did. I still don't. I actively
You couldn't go.
Did not do drugs or smoke or drink or anything. So I would have just been the sober, pale kid wearing a Slipknot jumpsuit to school. It wouldn't have been good.
What was your first concert, John? I'm like really curious.
My first concert was Incubus.
At what age?
17. My parents wouldn't let me go to concerts for a long time. So that was the thing. So I really liked Korn, obviously. And Korn came, the Issues tour in like 2000 or 2001 came to Vancouver, and I really wanted to go. And my parents just fought me tooth and nail, and they just wouldn't let me go. And so I just like couldn't go to Korn, and I wanted to go really bad. And then it was like, yeah, maybe like a year later, and I had befriended a guy who was a year older than me. I've talked about him on the show before. He was the one who kind of like got me into Deftones, Incubus, kind of some of the more like, you know, Dredge, like bands like that. Then that was kind of my gateway into getting more into like indie music. But pardon me, but so that was he really liked Incubus. So he was the one, it was the Morning View tour, and he was like, oh, I'm going to Incubus. And so at that time I was going into grade 12. It was like the September of my grade 12 year, 12th grade year for our American listeners. And so he was like, I got tickets to Incubus. And I said to my parents, I'm like, look, like I'm about to graduate. You know, I love music. I listen to music all the time. Like, can I please go? He was driving, so my parents were like, yeah, okay, you can go. And then it was Incubus and 30 Seconds to Mars.
So what will I mean? Probably not a pit at an Incubus show at that point.
It wasn't like a pit, but it was definitely like one of those floors where people kind of just pushed each other. So the floor would kind of, like almost like sway and like move back, like no circle pit, but definitely like people kind of like just sort of like gently pushing each other and sort of moving with the music, if that makes sense.
So did it freak you out? I mean, that's what I mean. Like,
no.
I'm trying to think of like
that didn't freak me out at all. Like I loved moshing, Brian. Like once, so like after Incubus, that just like broke the dam, and then I just went to concerts all the time, and I loved them, and I was huge into moshing. Like big, because I listened to like Screamo was like my big thing after this. So like Alexis on Fire, Under Oath, The Used. All kind of bands like that, Circus Survive, Deftones I obviously got a lot more into, just like a bunch of the Warped Tour bands, like Warped Tour was like the best day of my year. Like I look forward to Warped Tour. I was
Ozfest, basically the exact same thing. I go nuts for Ozfest every year.
Totally. So that was moshing and stuff. Like I was never scared of that. Like I loved that stuff. That was a big part of me growing up, but it was just, I just had to wait a little longer than maybe other people who were going to concerts earlier than me. But I will say Slipknot scared me though. Like I could have gone to Slipknot, and I chose not to. I was like, I like moshing. I like going to shows, but I feel like Slipknot's like a little bit dangerous for me.
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking. So like my first concert was in a club. Like at a nightclub at the Newport Music Hall. It's like the longest running rock club, about a 2,000 capacity place, general admission, big giant fucking pit. You were allowed to smoke inside there. People were doing drugs inside there. And that was the first time of my life I ever felt at home.
Right.
This is all dark and dingy, and we were seeing Korn and Fear Factory. The Fear Factory came on stage, and Burton Bell, first thing he says, "Are you guys ready to worship Satan?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude. Yes." Yes, I like this. And fucking I like felt very comfortable. So it's like trying to picture you in sort of the same situation. But you did get like on-ramped a little easier for we basically our personalities. Like the situation fit that our first concerts fit our personalities perfectly.
Definitely. Yeah. And I wasn't like, I wouldn't have been going to the shows that you were going to, like new metal shows and stuff like that. Like I think, obviously like Screamo and all that stuff like had pits but it was a different culture, I think.
The guys.
Metal culture is so different, right?
Yeah, you didn't have grown men that like are roofers in the audience. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So it was like it wasn't like super violent at those shows. And I sort of got in that direction too, where it was like I got into Coheed and Cambria. Like things lightened up for me over the years. But like with Slipknot, I saw them so early in their run. I mean, obviously, if they're opening for Cold Chamber,
yeah, exactly. Where's Cold Chamber now?
yeah. If they're opening for Cold Chamber at the Alrosa Villa, which was a small venue, so here's the thing: Cold Chamber allowed you to stage dive at their concerts. I believe it was by special request at their concerts, because I went to fucking a million concerts at this venue and they never let you stage dive. But I went to like 5 or 6 Cold Chamber concerts, and every time they let you stage dive. Like they just person after person fucking stage diving. So I think that they were like cool with it. And when Slipknot opened for them, they were not cool with it. So that immediately like kind of now, as an adult and a performer, I'm like, I get it. You know what I mean? You're up there roughhousing and shit. You don't want guys coming up there and maybe something shitty happens and somebody gets hurt or something like that. But like, it made me think that, I mean, basically at the time I was like, oh, what a bunch of pussies. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Like that turned me off, but the music was really heavy. But I also like Slipknot actually did the opposite of scaring me. Like I just thought it was goofy,
Right.
I felt like the guys banging on kegs and stuff. It was just not it didn't impress me at all. And like I kind of stood there and it's like, this feels like a freak show. Not even a freak show. That's even like too complimentary for it. So I never gave him a chance after that. I just didn't even listen to the album. You know, I was like, I'm not. So basically, this listen that we're doing currently is really my first true 10 times listening to the album straight through. Right. You know, I listened to it about 10 times last week.
Well, I would
sorry,
go ahead.
And like, this is it. This was my real, like, I'm going to get familiar with this album. And when we start, I obviously I have opinions on the track list and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of them, but like, you know, it's better than I think I thought at the time, but also not very good.
Yeah. So I would, just to finish up the last kind of thought, is I wonder if that's just our age gap, right? Like, because I could totally see, like, if I was your age when this came out, because you were what, 20, 21 when this came out?
99, I was 19 or 20.
Yeah. So I could totally see, like, if I was a 20-year-old and I would have been like, you know, 3 years into university at the time, I might have liked this album, but I probably would have seen it for the kind of, like, that it is kind of almost humorous. Like, it's almost, there is a goofy element of like these grown men that are in masks that are banging on shit, like whatever. There's almost that kind of like Gwar element to it a little bit, where it's like, it's serious, but like, it's not that serious. Like, it's, you can tell that they're not taking it like super seriously. But I think when you're a kid, when I'm 14, I think you don't know, like, you don't have enough of a brain development to understand, like, that there's some kind of like irony at play and that they're kind of being it's a little tongue in cheek. You don't really get that. You just see 9 guys in masks staring at you and they're playing the heaviest music you've ever heard in your life, and you find yourself liking it, and then you're like, oh fuck. Like, I almost feel like it's almost kind of like horror movies in a sense too, right? Like, when you're 12 to 15, horror movies just seem so real to you, and you're like, oh my god, like, this is so, like, good horror movies seem, you know, you don't see necessarily the, like, the camp element or the over the top element. You just go, holy shit, there's so much scary shit in this and I'm gonna have nightmares now. Whereas if you're like 20 or 21, you'd be like, oh my god, like, that's so obviously fake, or it's so over the top, it's almost comedy. You don't see that when you're younger. So I wonder if that's kind of where the division is for us.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't even know if I saw the irony in it. I think I probably figured they were serious, but that I looked at them like, this is dorky.
Right.
You know what
right. Sure.
The costumes and the masks. And I think I just had, I think, like, something about Slipknot really does sort of fly in the face of what nu metal was. And it might have even been intentional by them, in that, like, nu metal was like regular kind of looking, not regular looking guys, but like, it wasn't like a theatrical form of metal.
No, totally not.
Know?
I mean, if you watch, like, I mean, just watch like Family Values tour, right? Like, 98, you, like, obviously Rammstein is going insane. They've got pyro and the lead singer fucks the keyboardist with a fake dick and cum comes out of it and all that. Like, Rammstein is insane. And then, like, Korn and Limp Bizkit and all those bands, like, they just kind of stand there. Like, it's not, you know, there was definitely no, like you said, Korn feels like rock stars to you now. Like, I think, you know, as far as like stage shows I've seen, not that I've seen Korn live, but you look at it and you're like, okay, well, this wasn't like, it's like Korn playing an arena at that time almost seemed like a club band playing arenas by accident. Whereas, you know, Slipknot definitely seemed like they were like, yeah, we got 9 guys. We want to be in arenas on massive stages as soon as possible.
Right. And I think that is something that chased me away from Slipknot. It was just like, you also have this teenage thing of like, I just hope they don't get famous. And it's like, well, if Slipknot didn't get famous like really fucking fast, it was like kind of an untenable situation.
Oh, totally. Yeah, Slipknot would have been a trio very quickly.
Yeah, I find that. Well, that's what I was going to say earlier when you said they were scary. I was like, I just think they're scary because I look at like how many times they got to cut the check.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think
terrifying.
Well, I was saying that to Dan before we recorded. Like, definitely listening to this album, I think of like, I grew up playing music. I was in a band for 5 years of my life that had like a relative amount of success on the local level, and I saw like my friends' bands who were just traditional bands, like 2 guitars, a bass, and drums. I saw bands break up because they couldn't figure out how to split the money, because they've changed. I don't know how it is in America, but they've changed. They at that time they changed the rules in Canada so that bass and drums were no longer considered writing the song. They were considered arranging or arrangements. So the only things that were considered in quote unquote writing the song was the lyrics, guitar, piano, like anything that could be seen as like lead. So if you were the bassist or the drummer, there were, most bands were pretty, they'd be like, well, we're 4 buddies. We're all friends. We're playing at a local level. We're not, we might get a little bit of radio play out of this, whatever. Most bands are just like, yeah, we'll just split it evenly. Who cares? But I had friends' bands that broke up because the lead singer and the guitarist were like, well, technically we wrote all these songs, so we'll give you guys 10% each. And then we're going to take the other, or whatever. Right. And it was like, so I'm thinking of that, where I think of Slipknot on like a massive scale. And yeah, so basically Clown, Sean Crahan, Paul Gray, who is the guitarist, Joey Jordison, obviously the drummer, and Corey Taylor are the only ones who wrote any of the songs.
It makes sense.
So I mean, you got 4 writers, and then you got 5 guys who just don't. Or sorry, Paul Gray was a bass player. Pardon me. So you've got 2 percussionists, a bass player, and the lead singer, who are considered the writers. Like the 2 guitar players aren't even writers. So like, how are they getting paid? Like what's going, and they weren't considered touring members. Like they were a 9-member band. That was their whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure at the beginning they split it 9 ways.
They must have, right?
For sure. Guess. Yeah. Cause who's going to want to be the keg guy if he's getting like a shitty wage? And like, I just know from touring, it's like, it's hard to make money touring. So like, you can't like it can't be like, well, Brett does the logistics, so he gets more money than me, or I do the writing, so he gets more money than me. It's like you have to almost do it evenly so everybody gets everything out of it.
Yeah, so you don't kill each other.
Sense,
And yeah, for sure, it doesn't make any sense. So no, I'm with you totally. That part totally stuck out to me as well. But let's talk about the record. You said you had some thoughts about the track listing. So what is that? What are those thoughts?
I think this album was an EP, right? Like what I feel like is that they had like 5 good songs. They like had 5 good ideas. And then they had to fill the rest out as part of probably a contractual thing with the record company, right? Like they weren't going to let them release an EP. They wanted them to release a whole album. And I really think the first 5 songs of this thing are so fucking strong. They're like really good songs, but it like actually falls off a cliff after that, where it's just like all of the rest of the songs like are not very good. Like John, I don't know the fucking difference in the last 5. You could tell me any name for any one of the last 5 songs and I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like there's nothing discernible about them.
No, I agree. I think too, like, so the way I feel, I'm with you. I would include Spit It Out as a good song before it falls off a cliff. But for me, it's like a triple. It's like 2 sets of like 3 songs that are bad. So like, I actually think the 3-song run from Liberate, Prosthetics, and No Life is like interesting. There's like a couple good ideas there, especially in No Life. There's like that breakdown where Corey Taylor like sing. It's like, I can't remember, I don't understand, and then like that part of it I think is pretty good. Like to me, that was them. I don't know that the song is really that good, but that breakdown was like what Iowa was. Like they were just like, oh, that's like a cool, like Iowa was like Wait and Bleed and like the vocal breakdown in that song. And then being like, oh yeah, cool. Like that's what our band is. Our band is like this kind of like melodic sound. And then these breakdowns, like to me, that's, but yeah, like after Spit It Out, like Tattered and Torn, I guess Frail Limb Nursery and Purity aren't even on the one we're listening to now because they got deleted. So that's the other thing too, is like, so you think about like adding songs, like, so yeah, like Me Inside got added to the album after Frail Limb Nursery and Purity were taken off of it after they got sued. So like that's the other thing too, is like, yeah, they just kind of felt like, oh yeah, we got a bunch of other tracks. Like what? Oh, we got to take Purity off the album. That's fine. We got another one here that kind of sounds like it. Who cares? And then then the album just finishes with a thud. Like Diluted, Only One, and Scissors and the hidden track Eeyore are just like fucking horrible. Yeah, I agree with you. I think too, the sound is just so muddy. Like the way that the way it's recorded, and then a lot of the tracks sound so similar that yeah, you burn out on it. Like the album is 60 minutes long. Who needs an hour of this? Like to me, they're like, you know, this album should have been like 27 minutes and it should have been like 8 songs. Just
can't do that in metal though, John.
I know
you're not allowed to make short songs in metal, which is to the detriment of the genre of music.
Totally. And the thing that's weird is, so like I could see people listening to us covering this album and saying Slipknot's not new metal, and I could agree that Slipknot is not new metal, but this album is definitely new metal.
It's as new metal as it gets.
Yeah, like
I mean, Spit It Out is a new metal song.
Totally. And Corey raps a bunch. There's the DJ scratching a ton, and just the way that the songs are structured, like this is totally new metal for me. But I agree with you. Like, I mean, I think the ideas they have here, like I love, like Wait and Bleed, obviously amazing song, one of the best new metal songs ever. And then Surfacing right after, it starts out with that really cool, like haunting guitar part at the beginning. And I feel like that's just such a cool transition of like the hard hitting of like Wait and Bleed, and it ends like really like and then there's just that kind of like it slows down with that sort of like guitar lick at the beginning, and then it's just such a cool transition. And I feel like they had a lot of good ideas, but this was not like the best execution of those ideas.
And you know, I would say with Sick, Eyeless, Wait and Bleed, Surfacing, and Spit It Out, like they are sick. I think it's 6 different ideas.
Yes.
Is the way I feel. Like it shows what they can do. It's like a sampler platter, if you will.
Yes, it is.
But like it shows what they can do, and they're interesting songs, and they're good. It's just, again, it feels like the end part of this was really like written in 3 days because the label needed to get the album in, and they had a few extra like riffs and stuff laying around, and they just kind of made songs out of it. It's a bad first album, I think. Like and now when I started listening to it, I was like, I'm not gonna fucking blame myself for not sticking with this, because when you get to those last 5 songs, it's like, who likes those songs? They're like, I guess if you were listening on cassette and you could just leave it on the first side, it would be a wonderful album, you know?
Yeah, well, and obviously, like, they knew it, right? Like, why else would the album be structured this way? Like, they knew that. They knew. I think they knew. I think you see albums like this from this time period that are so front loaded. I mean, it's the same thing when we reviewed Significant Other. Like, it's Significant Other has a much stronger back half than this record, but like after track 7, Nobody Like You, it falls off a lot. Like, and I think people knew that I think bands at this time knew this is still the singles era, Bryan. Like, I mean, I think that's part of it. It's still the, like, we got to have a couple good singles to drive this album. If the first half of the album's really strong, that's all people want to listen to anyway. Who cares? Half the people are listening to this on cassette, CDs, like whatever. People just pull it out of their car after they listen to the songs they like. Like, yeah, this just really feels like that. To me,
it maybe does. It makes a little bit of sense, because if you dispersed all the good songs throughout the album with the sort of boring songs in between the good songs, people would be like, this album fucking sucks.
Totally. You know? I mean, that's what I think. I mean, I think that's definitely true, right? Like, I don't know that you would, like if the album had, like, if Wait and Bleed was track 10, like, even would you like it? Like, you probably wouldn't. You know, you'd be like, oh, why is the best track so far in the album? No, I mean, like, you'd like the song, but I just mean, no, I'm not saying this, it would make the song bad. I'm just saying, like, you'd be, by the time you got to it, you'd be like, oh, like, how is this song so good? I've heard like 6 of the last 8 I heard were not that great. How are we at this, like, really great song, you know?
Well, and it would have probably hurt songs like Sick and Spit It Out and Eyeless, which are like really great songs, to be mixed in with the other bad songs. It's almost like the songs on that first part of the album all like complement each other and lift each other up. And then there's nothing there at the end to do that.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think that opening of Surfacing, for example, does it sound as cool like after Wait and Bleed? Like, probably not. Right. Like, you know, so I agree with you. Like, for me, it was the same. This is a weird one because I'm a huge nu metal fan, and I did definitely really like Slipknot back in the day. But, you know, it just, I haven't listened to this in forever. Like, Wait and Bleed, sure, I've heard that a few times since this album came out, but like, I don't know the last time I listened to this album full through. I mean, you said you never listened to it full through because of seeing them live and stuff, but like, I used to love this album. I even back then I didn't listen to it full through. I would listen up to No Life, and then I would cut it off, and I would always skip Tattered and Torn and Me Inside. I actually think my copy of it had Purity on it. I didn't like that either. But yeah, like, I would always stop it after No Life for sure. But then, yeah, this was one of those ones, like Korn and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and Deftones, I've never really stopped listening to. It's not like I listen to it all the time. You definitely listen to nu metal more than I do. I don't listen to it all the time, but like, just this album, it aged poorly even then. Like, I feel like even by like 2002, this album, like, by the time Iowa came out, you're like, oh, this is what Slipknot is. It's not this past album. This is the Slipknot I like, you know. And I think the Subliminal Verses came after that, and that was a good album too. So I think you kind of think like, oh yeah, that's dated now. I don't even need that. And it felt dated in like 2003, and now we're in 20. I feel like 2020.
I liked Iowa.
Oh, Iowa was so good. I liked Iowa too. Like, listening to this record made me be like, fuck, I haven't listened to Iowa in a long time. I should listen to Iowa. Like, for sure. And Iowa was a great, and yeah, the Subliminal Verses was after Iowa, and that was a really solid record too.
It's really weird for me because, like, I was a fan of so many of these bands. You know, like, I liked Spineshank, I liked Cold Chamber, Fear Factory, Korn, like all of the bands, but this was one of the ones. Power Man 5000's another one where it's just like, this just doesn't fucking click with me. Yeah. But I think one of my favorite songs of the era is Eyeless. I'm almost positive that song comes off so fucking cool when you listen to it now. But like, I'm glad. I guess I'm not glad. I wish I would have. I think had I listened to this in 1999, right? Like, if I had listened to this album a lot in 1999, like you did, I might feel differently about those last songs. It was listening to it in 2020 over and over and 10 times in a row or whatever, how however many times I did it, that was like, I'm fucking bored, man.
Yeah.
Like these last few songs, it was just like, could I, I listened to it all the way through and it was a chore. Like I listened to it all the way through like 10 times, and I was always checking to see how many tracks were left on the album when I was listening.
Well, because Slipknot Filler 2, it's never easy to listen to, right? Like I think if you look at like other nu metal bands, like you say, the kind of the funkier end of nu metal, even the songs you don't like as much, there's groove to them, whereas like Slipknot was not a groovy band, or certainly on this record they weren't. I think they got a little bit more groovy on Iowa and the Subliminal Verses, but I think on this record, every song is just kind of and it's like after a while you're like, okay, like I can only hear these kinds of riffs. I can only hear machine gun riffs for so long before you just go, okay, like there's got to be more. There has to be more to it than this.
I kind of also wonder if they forced themselves to do nu metal in a way, like Corey forced himself to rap on this album, or like they forced the turntable in because that was like what was hot at the time. Because really what I think this band is, this is a fucking metal. This is pure metal. This isn't a nu metal band. And I think that first album was like not a cash grab necessarily, but it was like an attention grab. It was like, okay, so like if we're going to go out on tour, the bands we're going to have to open for are in this genre. So we're going to have to rap sometimes because that's what the fans want to hear. I truly don't think that, like, I don't think Slipknot likes nu metal. Which is probably a pretty easy thing to say considering like basically everybody that did nu metal said they hated nu metal.
Yeah, and still do to this day.
Yeah, they're all like, "Nah, I thought it was bullshit, stupid. It's just my job,"
Yeah. Well,
but like, I feel like these were guys that they would have much preferred taking like a Metallica path. They would have liked to have been Metallica or Slayer or something like that. I think that they decided because Korn was big, because Limp Bizkit was big at the time. They were like, in order to make it in music, you have to do this. So this is what we're going to fucking do.
And so, we're all about theories on this podcast. So this is a perfect segue into my Slipknot theory. Are you ready for my Slipknot theory, Brian?
I am totally ready for it.
So this is my Slipknot theory that I thought about while listening to this album over the last week. Okay. So to me, it's like, so obviously Korn and Limp Bizkit are insanely popular, and there are other nu metal bands that are popular, but like, no one is popular in the way that like only these two bands are popular. Like they
Deftones, I think, is up there too.
Deftones were never an arena band,
Yeah, they were. I saw them in an arena.
Really?
I guess I did see them in an arena with Incubus. It was a co-headline tour.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know, you never know who.
Sure. Okay. But you get what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of, anyway, I like, to me, Korn and Limp Bizkit are sort of forever married as like the two nu metal bands that people talk about. And so I think that there were bands who, and I agree with you, I think there are bands that were thinking like, how can we be nu metal without really being nu metal? And I think that like Slipknot saw a path that was heavier, right? Because like, it makes sense that if you have you probably have lots of fans of Korn and Limp Bizkit who are like, I just wish it was a little heavier. They're like the songs that Korn and Limp Bizkit do that are heavier. Like, those are my favorite songs. I wish Korn did a whole album where it was only like speedy, heavier songs, right? And then you had people who were like, I only like the really melodic parts of Korn and Limp Bizkit. I wish they didn't do any speed metal songs. I wish they didn't do any metal influence songs. And that's who Linkin Park was for. And so like, to me, I think like to me, especially having just reviewed Linkin Park a couple episodes ago, That's like the logical path that I see, because we kind of talked about it with Linkin Park, that, you know, I think they saw, okay, there are probably people who would like a band like this, but without screaming and without swearing and without, you know, and Slipknot was like, oh, there's probably people who would like this band with way more swearing and way more intensity and like, you know, way more metal shit. And so I agree with you in that I think that's the market that Slipknot went to. And then I think once they got established, and nu metal also fell off a cliff like so quickly, right?
Oh yeah.
So then they were like, oh, okay, cool. Now they got to Iowa, which was still like had some nu metal elements, but certainly wasn't nu metal. And then they get to Subliminal Verses, which was like just pure metal, and they were getting to do what they wanted to do by that point. But like that to me is what this album came across as, because I think too, you hear it in the lyrics, right? Like we've talked about Jonathan Davis. Like Jonathan Davis's lyrics were very specific to him, but you could kind of like glean your own meaning from it. Like, you know, he'd talk about being abused or whatever, and you're like, well, I've never been abused, but I've been sad. I can kind of level with this. Corey Taylor's lyrics are very generic, right? It's a very much like, fuck this, fuck that, fuck you. There's not like, you know, it's not so much specificity. I think that was another thing they were going for, where they're like, yeah, this is like a generation of angry kids. I don't even know if I'm particularly angry, but it's pretty easy to write a lyric like, you know, fuck you all, fuck this world, fuck everything that you stand for. It's like, well, that could mean anything to anyone, right? Like, don't belong, don't exist, don't, like, it was just taking what Korn and Limp Bizkit wasn't really like that, but Korn specifically, their kind of darker stuff, I think Corey made it so that it was like, yeah, I don't even have to really say anything specific. I can just kind of yell out these sort of generic platitudes about how the world sucks. I mean, on Iowa, they have a track just called People Equals Shit, you know, like,
yeah,
so yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that was their whole thing, was they're like, well, let's just make it so that it's ambiguous, and it could literally be anyone screaming about anything, and it'll be this catharsis for people that they haven't had before.
Right, but I also, that is what got him, right? Is like, because it is generic. A lot of this album at least is very generic. I think he ended up figuring it out after a while. I'm not saying they were never good. I just feel like this album, anybody could have done this out. I mean, not those first. It sucks to say, because like, really, if I'm giving this a letter grade, I'm gonna give it a D. It's a D album, right? Like, yeah. I'm trying to relate to you as a teacher,
and I appreciate that. Thank you.
We would call that a D.
That's about a 55 to 60%.
It's a D plus. No, in America, it's 60 to 70 is a D.
Oh, okay.
We're about like a 68, 69 here.
Oh, wow.
D
okay.
Is what I think. It's a 6 out of 10.
Right.
2.5 stars. It's like one of those things that's like, this is, the highs are too high. The highs are so high that I can't call this a shitty album. Like, I think the first 6 songs are good now. They're like timeless. They don't sound of the time, which, by the way, most nu metal doesn't sound of the time. Limp Bizkit is really the only one that is like, okay, that can only exist then.
I mean, I don't know if I totally agree with you on that, but we'll let it slide for the sake of not having a massive argument about that.
What do you mean?
Well, you don't think that Korn sounds of 1998? I don't think anyone hears freak on. I don't think anyone hears boom, da, da, and they're like, yeah, this sounds like something that could come out today.
But they've updated the sound over the years.
Sure. Okay, I see what you're saying. Like these bands have existed long enough that they've found a way to adapt that sound that they made then to now.
Yeah. So like the Nothing sounds like what nu metal would probably be now.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
I just don't think Limp Bizkit can do the Nothing. You know, I don't think they have the ability to do the Nothing.
Oh, yeah, no. Limp Bizkit couldn't be a band now. I mean, Limp Bizkit couldn't be a band in like 2006, or like when did Results May Vary come out, or Gold Cobra? Like no one was like, oh fuck yeah, new Limp Bizkit in like 2006. Everyone was like, no, we got it. We have it all. We don't need any more we got 3 good albums that were good. That's the end of this.
That's what I think is interesting about Slipknot, though, is that like they came out with an album in 2019 too, just like Korn did, that was critically acclaimed. Like it was acclaimed by like the people who would say back then, like Pitchfork would say, I don't know if Pitchfork gave it a good grade, but it was acclaimed by people like that. You know what I mean? Where it's like they seem to be like getting better as they go, which is what I feel like about Korn too. I just think they're getting better. They're like getting like they're actually getting good. And I also think we've grown into them. Like we've all grown up with them now. Right. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, now I have to like these guys because they've just been around for a long time. They've kind of like boiled they boil each decade down, or part of a generation down in like the early 2000s. Boiled down was like there was Korn, there was Limp Bizkit, and like something else. I don't even fucking
well, yeah,
Jennifer Lopez.
I think too it comes with that though, right? Like if you're Korn or you're Slipknot and you're still making music now, like you know that you do have that massive fan base that's grown with you, so there's no pressure, right? Like where's the pressure coming for Korn? Like they know that at any moment they can book a worldwide tour and make millions of dollars. So the writing of the music is just strictly for the enjoyment of it, right? They're just doing, there's no pressure anymore. So of course they're releasing good records because they're doing exactly what they want to.
So I wonder though, so we do know that Korn could say, we're going to play the first album. We're going to go on a tour where we're just going to play the whole first album, and people would fucking eat those tickets up like crazy.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Like I would drive fucking 6 hours to see that. And we know that Limp Bizkit could say, hey, we're going out on the road. We're going to play Significant Other in its entirety. And people would fucking buy those tickets.
Oh, 1,000,000. I'd get on a plane.
But do we think that if Slipknot went out and said they're going to play this first album, that it would be as big of a deal as even, I'll even say like Deftones saying they're going to play Around the Fur, you know?
Yeah. The only reason I would say no is because I think that Slipknot was just never as big of a band. Right. So like, I don't know that they're like, if Slipknot wanted to do that in clubs, sure. Right. Like if Slipknot was like, hey, we're going to play our self-titled album, we're going to do a club tour, I think they would have no problem getting people to go to that because there's still that nostalgia factor. And I'm sure there are people who are going to be mad at us for saying that this album kind of sucks. Like
it doesn't suck. I again, like the album, I would say on the whole is very good because it has 6 good songs, 6 very good songs on it. And then, but the rest of it, is not very good.
I said kind of sucks, Brian. I didn't say sucks. I said kind of sucks. But I think there will be people who would be like, no, the back half of this album is great. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think so. Because before you reply that to me, before you yell at me, listen to the fucking thing. Because I don't want you fucking going like, I listened to it back in fucking 2003 and it kicked ass. It's like, no, you fucking sit down and listen to it now and then tell me it's good.
Yeah, I think people would go for the nostalgia factor of it, but I also think it's one of those you'd listen to them even play it live and you'd be like, oh yeah, I probably didn't need to hear this whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think they would do it though. Like it's not an iconic album. Like to me, Slipknot they're not an iconic album band, really. Like, I mean, Korn's released how many albums, but I think they have, 2 or 3 iconic albums, the self-titled, Follow the Leader, Issues. Like I think any of those 3 records.
Life is Peachy.
Yeah, Life is
over there.
Well, no, but I don't know that Life is Peachy is an album that people would be like clamoring to see played front to back.
I do.
You think so?
I think that there are a ton of kids, there are a ton of adults out there that Life is Peachy was their first exposure to Korn. And after seeing like the Adidas video, and they kind of caught it before it fucking became like huge popular, because Life is Peachy was, a really well-selling album, but it wasn't Follow the Leader,
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying
they kind of caught it before then, and it's their favorite album. I mean, you can post a fucking poll, and you will get a good amount of votes for Life is Peachy as their best album.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't people who wouldn't like that. I'm just saying that I think if you polled Korn fans, like, okay, Korn is going to play one of their first 4 albums back to back tonight, I think Life is Peachy comes last.
No, I don't. I think the first one does.
You think so?
I think the first one does. I do, because I think less people like the first one.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I think Follow the Leader wins
the,
in a landslide, but I also think Issues was when a lot of people discovered Korn too, right? So like Issues is almost kind of like the leading into the back half of their catalog in some ways. Like, I don't know.
I've been listening to Issues a lot lately, and it is very good.
It's a great record.
This is like actually really good music on there. I don't know. I like the last song a lot, where he yells, "I want to blow my head off.
Yeah,
I feel so bad inside." Like that, I really feel I really feel that from him.
Yeah, we're still feeling the things that Jonathan Davis wanted us to feel.
Right.
Okay, before
I think,
sorry, go ahead.
I like the song. I like the first 6 songs. We're gonna give it a grade anyway at the end.
Yeah,
but I don't want people to think I think that like it sucks, because I don't think it sucks. I just think that, like, I don't know. This really feels like an in over your head sort of situation, you know, like where it's like they probably got the contract. They probably didn't have the songs. They needed to get songs, and they just front loaded the fucking thing, and just, you know, they had to get them done. And so they did, because this is also a band that probably got signed on site. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is probably a band that didn't get signed for their like musical skills.
No,
you know?
yeah. So let's move into that. Speaking of that, let's talk about the album art a little bit, because like what do you think of the album art?
I mean, like, I think a picture of the band is a good album cover.
I think it's I think it's a really good album cover. I think you know everything you need to know about the band from the album cover, which for a debut album is perfect. I also think the name Slipknot is such a good band name.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Like, I remember you start thinking, like, what does it even mean?
Yes.
But it's like nothing. It just is this fucking thing that sounds cool and scary, man.
Totally. And that's the thing, right? It's like, it's a perfect thing where it's a real word and it means a real thing, but like no one boats. Like, no one gives a shit about sailing. Like, no one's like, oh God. Like, no one hears, oh, you got to check out this new band Slipknot, and thinks they're going to be like a band about sailing, you know, like, so it's like, it's those are often the best band names, where it's like, it is a thing and it does mean something, but like it can so easily be co-opted into meaning something completely different. And like you say, it sounds scary, and you just like, you look at this album cover, you see these fucking scary dudes in masks. It's dark. The font of Slipknot is perfect. It's just like, yeah, I love a debut album cover where you understand everything about the band just by looking at it. And like, it kind of looks like they're in a cage. It's perfect. I think it's so good.
I kind of wanted to be in a band called Crankshaft, which is a car part, but it sounds fucking scary.
That sounds like a new metal band. That sounds like a band that would have been on the Madden 05 soundtrack.
I mean, they're probably, I mean, I guarantee there's a band called Crankshaft.
Yeah. It's a covers band of like old dads that plays in your local bar.
That would be cool though. Yeah. I like the first 6 songs. I'm gonna give them credit for that. And then what's next?
Well, we talked about the album art. We usually we look at some articles, but we've gone pretty deep here. There's this one article I found here that talks about the masks specifically, and there's a few quotes here that are very funny to me. So the first one is Corey Taylor. And he says, so he's talking about his original mask in 1999. and he said that he felt the band's masks allowed their music to be purer. And the quote was, "Music then was basically a template for a bunch of hot guys to sell a bunch of shit that didn't mean anything. We put a mask on and we're not about our fucking faces. It's always going to be music first." Which, like, that doesn't make any sense to me as a metal band. Like, no one, like, to me, you are making it about your faces because you put masks on. Now you're the band with masks.
It fucking rules, though, right? It's like you could call the masks of weakness on their part. But, you know, basically, I assume they were just all ugly guys. You know,
Corey Taylor's not a bad looking dude.
Yeah,
he's taking the mask off for Stone Sour shit.
Yeah, he's not a bad looking guy. He also has 2 books, which, you know, Patreon feed. I would like to read one of Corey Taylor's books. Have you ever seen the book covers of them?
No.
Oh my good word! I gotta
look him up right now.
You gotta Google Corey Taylor books because I think.
Oh wow!
I think.
Oh my god! That's ooh. Okay.
I think when you see the covers, you're like, yeah, we definitely got to read these books.
Oh my
One of them's
God.
called 7 Deadly Sins, and the other one's You're Making Me Hate You.
Yeah, that's exactly. Oof.
Also, he wrote one called A Funny Thing Happened. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Heaven. Or How I Made Peace with the Paranormal and Stigmatized Zealots and Cynics in the Process. Corey Taylor.
Yeah,
so he's written 3 books, and they're uncomfortable looking. So
the 7 Deadly Sins one is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, he also.
I can see
America
why there's an
51.
alternate cover for that one.
He also wrote America 51, which is, and they sell his books at Target. So
yeah, no, he's. It's just interesting, you know, the whole like evolution of Slipknot as that kind of stuff became less scary is so interesting. But yeah, to me, that was just so dumb. Like maybe he's referring to like boy bands and stuff, but like, I mean, Korn and Limp Bizkit were not bands of hot guys. Like, I mean, come on. Like it was just, it doesn't make any sense. Like you could maybe make that argument about Linkin Park, maybe, but like, again, I don't think Linkin Park was put together like, oh, here we got a bunch of good looking dudes to do this. I do love though another quote from Mick Thompson, their guitar player, I thought was pretty good. He wrote, "Roadrunner didn't like the masks. They also didn't want 9 guys in the band, but I can't tell you how many millions of dollars that the label has made from us. I take pride in knowing that they were wrong and I was right."
Okay, well, they weren't wrong.
No, they weren't wrong. You could chop 4 members out of your band tomorrow.
Yeah, you didn't need 9 guys, but you did make millions because you had 9 guys, because that was really what happened, right? Like they made the money because there were 9 guys. 9 guys made them famous, and
yes.
And that is what, because this first album got so much attention because it was 9 guys, and then that gave them a chance to, you know, go back and make the other one, you know, the next albums, but they don't get the amount of attention they got without the masks and without the masks and 9 guys. You know, that was why I was interested in them, because immediately when I heard there were 9 guys and they wore masks, I was like, okay, what's this?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's a great gimmick. And that's why it's also funny when Corey's like, oh, it was just a bunch of hot guys trying to sell shit. It's like you put masks on to sell shit. So what the fuck are we talking about here?
It's like exactly the same as being a hot guy. It's one. And secondly, why does he have dreadlocks on his mask? That's annoying. Right?
Yes, it is.
Are they still wearing masks on stage?
Oh, yeah. They change their masks every album.
Oh, all right.
Well,
okay,
like,
guys.
so some of them have had like the same theme. So like Mick Thompson always wears some kind of like goalie mask. Like it's kind of looks like a hockey goalie mask. And then Craig Jones always has a gimp mask with nails sticking out of it. I think his is the best. And then Chris Fane often has like a Pinocchio one with like the giant like Pinocchio nose. Jim Root is often the jester. Sean Crahan is the clown, but like the clown changes a lot. Like the way he does it. Like there's one mask where he's kind of just like wearing bandages, but like with a clown nose, but it's a mask. Anyway,
did he die? Who died?
Jim Root died, the jester.
Oh,
Or no,
okay,
sorry,
well.
Paul Gray. The bass
I
player?
thought Clown died.
No, Clown's alive.
Okay,
I
good.
think it was Paul Gray, The bass player, yes, he was 38, died in 2010.
I would take the fucking masks off now. I would just be like Kiss. I would do an MTV special, take the masks off, and never wear them again. Like, they could get away with not wearing the masks anymore. But I guess that's what people pay to fucking see.
They love the masks, man. Yeah, he died of a overdose of morphine, and he also had significant heart disease.
That happens. That's probably how I'm going to die, too. Heart disease and drugs.
Speaking of you, this is the last quote I'm going to read before we get to our grade. And this just, it's only because it's funny. We were talking about happy wife, happy life. And, I've gotten to know you, Bryan, pretty well over the last year. To me, this seems like something that you would do. Okay. Tell me if I'm wrong. So this is Clown telling the story about the clown mask, because he was actually the one who started it. Started the whole mask thing. So it says, Sean Crahan's iconic clown mask was the one that started the whole idea. I was in the mall with a girlfriend and I walked into a Halloween store. There was a clown mask there, and when I put it on, I became another thing. It was $49 and I had $50 in my pocket. I was supposed to be buying my girlfriend lunch and she got all pissed off because I spent all my money on this mask. Well, she's gone, but I still have the mask.
My wife would be cool with it though, because she's like cool with all of my dumb things.
So that's good. But yeah, just remind you always talk about how you spend money in bad ways. So.
Oh God, that's what I do, man. I would have done that. If I saw something like that, I would definitely purchase that. I'm looking at Slipknot masks, and you know what kind of bothers me now? They have Hollywood special effects guys make them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like the one quote from Clown that I read to Dan earlier is so stupid. This is from his mask for the All Hope Is Gone in 2008. And it says his mask for All Hope Is Gone was probably his most technical, a patchwork of black leather, thick red and white stitching, and zips that were both sinister and brooding. I don't want any of it to look human. There are no human elements to it, he said. The mask is actually made of steel, so I can rip it off my head and use it as a weapon. It's not some plastic bullshit.
Oh my God. Well, that's cool then, I guess. Yeah,
like it's kind of cool, I guess.
I think they look great and they have like a really good time up there. It seems like they're really great there, and they look good, but I don't know. You should make your own masks still, boys, if you're listening.
Yeah, if you're listening, make your own. Don't get these Hollywood special effects guys to do it. Stay true to the cause.
Yeah. Also, Corey Taylor, lefty. So just want to throw that out there for people.
Okay. Are you a lefty?
Leftist, like politics guy. Yes, I am, John.
I thought you meant left-handed. I was like, who cares if he's left-handed?
Well, I wouldn't even know that.
Well, I know. That's why I barely
can tell left from right, dude.
Okay, well, what you do is you make an L with both of your index fingers and your thumbs, and the one that makes an actual L, that's left.
I actually have to do that for real. I do. 100%.
Okay, let's move on to our tweet defense. So this is our rating of the album. It's kind of a modernist twist on reviewing these albums. We do this every month, every time we review an album. So what it is if someone tweeted at you that they did not like this album, how many times would you tweet back at them in an argument to say that the album is good? Bryan, what is your tweet defense?
Okay, well, I am going to say again, you have to recontextualize my number every single show.
Yes.
Because I don't remember the last one ever. I'm going to get a record of it, though. I'm going to get a record of it and write them all down so that I then know where I'm at.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that for this album, I'm going to give it this. I'll give it the 6. Can I give it a 6.5 tweet? Like I would write one, but then I would be like, no, I'm going to delete all that and just call it a day. Yeah. 6.5,
that's pretty good.
Cause I do think there's a lot there, but it's all like front loaded into 6 songs. And I like those songs a lot. Like I really enjoy those songs. I just really don't I think the biggest crime with music is being boring. I think that like bad music I can enjoy. It's the same thing with movies, right? It's like a bad movie I can enjoy in a certain way. and then a good thing, obviously you enjoy in a certain way. But if you're boring, that is like the worst possible thing you can do, because and that's how I feel about the last half of this album, is that it's boring.
Right. Especially when it could have been so much more interesting.
Possibly. I just think they should have fucking done like, I really think they should have probably just done an EP here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even it does, like I said, doesn't even have to be an EP. It could be like 7. It could be like 8 or 9 songs. You know, you could add a couple of the like ones that are better of the worst ones and call it a day. Like for me,
60-minute album is stupid.
It's stupid.
To do.
Like
you
for
should
me,
never do that.
For me, I think if you've got the first 6 songs, then you've got Prosthetic and No Life and Diluted. Is that the other one? Yeah. So though you got those 3, that's good. Or Liberate's good too. You can add any of those ones in there. That's good. That's a good album.
I mean, I feel that way with comedy too. It's like if you got 45 minutes, just do 45 minutes, man. I don't want to see 15 and nothing.
I'm recording a new album, and it's only going to be 30.
30.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's about what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I guess we can talk about this for a minute at least.
Sure.
I'm doing a show. I'm doing 2 shows. I'm doing a show on February 28th, right, in Columbus, and I'd been doing these variety shows where we would fly people into town, and they would do 30 minutes each. You know, two different people would do 30 minutes each, and then me and Bryan would do like 10 or 15 in between them. It was fucking amazing, because it was just like there were bands, there were all this stuff, and we got all the credit for it, but we really only did about 15 minutes of material.
Nice. So that's good.
But I decided for this month, because we weren't able to get a lot of tours booked through the winter, or just one-off shows booked through the winter, that we're just going to do a fucking hour. And I think the last time we did an hour was last February.
Yeah, you don't have to do that much time. No one cares, especially like in a comedy album. You get 30 minutes, you're good. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do an hour, though. I want to do an hour. I want to know that I can do an hour still. You know, I used to be able to fucking do an hour. You
can do an hour. We did an hour in Seattle.
Ones.
We did an hour in Seattle. We did 30 of P.O.D. Cast and 30 of Street Fight.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
That counts.
Because that's like 2 fun things. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So it has to be an unfun hour. If the crowd doesn't hate this, it doesn't
doing the
count.
P.O.D. cast was fun and novel, and I also had time in between. I'm doing just a fucking hour straight at this next one, and I'm excited about it. Yeah, so
I'm excited for you.
It might suck though, but please come to it if you're around.
There you go. Yeah, I think for me, for the tweet defense, I would probably. I mean, my numbers across the board have been lower than yours, so people don't need to freak out. But I would say maybe like 3. I would say it's like that's just, but my numbers are lower, Bryan. It's a different scale. So it's not as bad. Like, I just think, again, it's kind of like what I talked about with System of a Down. It'd be like, you know, people would be like, oh, you know, I hate this record. And I'd be like, nah, there's some pretty good songs on it. And they'd be like, I don't know, man. I'd be like, Wait and Bleed is pretty fucking good. And then we'd argue about Wait and Bleed for like 1 or 2 more tweets, and then it'd be over.
That's a F. Dude,
that's not an F, though. It's not out of anything.
Here's what I feel, though.
This album is not an F for me. I just want to make that clear. This is not an F album for me.
For me, though, it feels like you're saying the only good song is Wait and Bleed.
No, I agreed with you the whole time. I actually said I liked more songs than you did. I liked the first 6, and then I liked
3.
You 3 tweets. That's a different. It's a different scale.
It's a scale, though.
It is a scale.
We know what 3 means.
Yes, exactly. I know what 3 means. I did. Okay, it sounds like I'm doing a tweet defense right now to you.
Yeah,
and I've already made it. I've already made it to 7. So there you go.
You're doing a tweet defense to me, but your defense is of why you hate this album, and the only good song you think is Wait and Bleed. With me, I like 6 of the songs.
Fuck. That's not what I'm saying.
So people love me.
Hey,
because I'm a positive.
People have
man.
listened to the 90 minutes of this show that have come before this argument, and they know where I stand. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Yeah. You like Wait and Bleed, and you think they're scary, and you will never see them in concert. That's sick.
That's true. That's
you
all,
hated them. A 3, dude.
I
What
didn't,
a
I didn't
3
hate
is?
them. Yeah, I know.
You
what
know,
it's
well, that number is low. Let me tell you, it's probably lower than System of a Down, which you also hated.
No, System of a Down, I think I gave 2, didn't I?
Ooh,
I'm pretty sure.
man, you are ruthless.
I'm just a harsh marker. I'm a teacher, man.
Yeah, you're ruthless, man. I don't know. Have you given anything over like a 5?
Oh yeah, I gave Korn
Okay.
and Limp Bizkit like 10s, dude.
Okay. All right. Well, then that just shows that this is a fucking F.
This is not an F.
Korn
No,
a
I
10 and you gave this a 3.
I think I gave
That's an F.
I think the highest I've given is actually like 7 or 8. So it's
Okay,
not that bad.
well,
it's not that bad. Come on.
7 or 8, you know, I guess we'll say fucking we'll let you have 8.
Yeah,
you know, I
let me
think it's
have
probably
it.
6.
Let me have
But
it.
like, yeah. Well, okay, so 7, 3 is like little
It's a
less
D.
than half of 7.
It's a
F.
D. It's not an F.
F.
It's not an F.
I gave it a B plus, actually. That's what I'm saying. For everybody that gets mad about like when we give them bad reviews, I know I gave it a 6,
I like
which
this
is a
album
D,
enough.
but I gave it a 10. I actually gave it I gave it a D, but a B plus type of D. John gave it an F.
B plus type of D.
Yeah. Well, like it was like a D. It was like yes, technically
Right.
you got enough questions wrong to get a D, but also you tried really hard and you were sincere about it.
That's how people describe my penis, a B plus type of D.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
you hated the album.
I didn't
guess
hate
it's
the
time
album.
for the challenge.
Well,